Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted that number 1 would be Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. Number 2 would be One Battle After Another. Number 3 would be The Strangers Chapter 2. Number 4, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. And number 5, him. And this was a total goose egg this weekend. I got none of my predictions right for this weekend. Some of you got a little closer, had your mind in the right places, but ultimately no one got their predictions right. Let's just dive right on into it, because I am happy to report that despite some skepticism, some hesitation, number 1 did turn out to be One Battle After Another. Now, this wasn't like a huge box office win or anything, like as far as like what we've seen already this year, right? If you're Paul Thomas Anderson, however, this is the highest opening weekend wide release you've ever had. A lot of his movies have like opened in limited release domestically and they've had slower rollouts, but this is the highest wide release he's ever gotten, right? Domestically, it opened to 22 million, and then worldwide that adds to a total of 48 million right now, with a budget that ranges from 130 to 175 million. Obviously, immediately right out of the gate, that doesn't look great, right? Number 1, though, with Warner's other successes this year, I think they're fine funding one of the great American filmmakers working today. Number 2, there is fantastic word of mouth surrounding this. And when I saw the movie, I was like, is this going to work for everybody? Because it's working for me. I don't know if it's going to work for everybody, but CinemaScore has it at an A. Rotten Tomatoes, both the critics and the audiences are like 90 or 8. That's like the difference, 90 and 80%. Like, it's high up. So it does seem like, I'm not sure if it'll be enough word of mouth to get it to like, oh my gosh, it's the next like Warner Brothers like mega grosser, it's the next Weapons. I don't know if it's anything like that or if it's enough to like cross over their initial production budget here, but I do think the word of mouth is strong enough where it will continue to live on post box office run. I'm obviously looking at this movie as far as like awards season goes. Like, I feel like this is going to get nominated for Oscars, and I feel like popularity will pick up again with that one. So yeah, I just think despite it not being like a traditional like box office success right out of the gate, there are certain films where that's not necessarily what we're looking at, you know what I mean? And this is just one of them. For PTA, like I mentioned, it is his highest opening ever. Domestically, it has already outgrossed Hard 8 by 22 million, Inherent Vice by 14, The Master 6 million, Licorice Pizza 5, and Punch Drunk Love by the same number, Phantom Thread by just 1 million, and it's squeaked by Magnolia by just a couple 100,000. It's behind Boogie Nights now by 4 million. Already one of his highest grossing films already. And then worldwide, like I said, the number's 48 million. It's outgrossed Hard 8 by 48 million, Inherent Vice 34, Punch Drunk Love 24, The Master 19, Licorice Pizza 16, Boogie Nights 5 million, and it's squeaked by Phantom Thread by 1 million, and it's a couple 100,000 over Magnolia here as well. Needs 29 million until There Will Be Blood, but then worldwide it'll be his highest grossing film. Like, that's how far it's gone already, which is pretty spectacular if you ask me. I'm very excited about this. So I'm sure there will be those people out there, because they always exist, that'll look at this and go like, oh, it didn't gross like $1 billion immediately, something like that. But I feel like this could potentially have the legs to carry on to make a decent amount of change in the theater. And even after the fact, I think that's where we're going to see a lot more of its success, like in awards runs and rentals outside of that, or when it gets re-released in theaters, if they do that for award season. So yeah, very exciting for PTA. It's not as exciting. Number 2 being Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. And I thought this could potentially be number 1 because, yeah, I didn't know if One Battle After Another... Honestly, One Battle After Another made about as much as I would have expected. I just didn't know I don't know the popularity of Gabby's Dollhouse. Is this like a family thing, or is it like more specifically for like babies? Is it like a Disney Junior-esque kind of thing? How is that going to translate as far as like, the theater? And it made 13 million domestically. Worldwide, it's only bumped up to 19 million. So it's clearly not as popular as I had feared, which for PTA, that's good. You know what I mean? This is on a budget of 32 million, so obviously they have a ways to go to get past that point initially, and then also to double that for our show standards be considered a success. So yeah, just kind of, it's here. You know what I mean? It's not like an Oogie Loves level of disaster. There's at least like some like fan base that went to see it this weekend, but it's just not enough to justify a 30 mil plus price tag. That's kind of great. I know there's like a bit of animation use in there, so I mean, I guess it makes sense. And there is like an IP as far as like this, the Ann Kristen Wiig is. It makes a little bit of sense, I guess. It's just like, Yeah, maybe they didn't even know their own popularity when they made the movie. I don't know. Number 3 is Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. It is still here, making 7.1 million, adding to a domestic total of 118 million worldwide. It is now at 602 million. So that is continuing to be amazing for this movie, obviously. So I have nothing else to add. Like I said when it first came out, like I wish that I was more invested with this so I could share like some more enthusiasm like the fans have shared for it, right? But it's still really great to see, obviously. Obviously, this had more of a fan base than Gabby's Dollhouse. I mean, the fact that like the weekend holds they haven't been great for Demon Slayer, but obviously they've already like made so much money it doesn't even matter. But I do wonder if like Gabby's Dollhouse will have like an even worse one, and maybe Demon Slayer overtakes it if Demon Slayer is still in theaters. Number 4 is The Conjuring: Last Rites, sneaking back up here, outlasting some other movies that we'll talk about in a second, making 6.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 161 million. So for the 2025 year in horror, it needs 117 million until it outgrosses Sinners. Obviously, we've talked about how that's not going to happen at this rate, but worldwide it already is the highest grossing horror film of 2025, so it doesn't matter. It is sitting now worldwide at 435 million, which is almost 400 million over its initial production budget of 55 million. So I mean, yeah, they're still, even though they had like a pretty significant drop off after their first weekend, like they're still like clinging on. They're outlasting some other horror movies that were newer and also are newer releases, like our number 5, which is The Strangers Chapter 2. And I was like last weekend going like, I don't think it's going to make more. I could maybe see it making less, but I was kind of sticking with like it'll make about the same as the first chapter did last year. It brings me no joy, clearly, to say this. It only made $5.9 million this weekend. So for the other Strangers films, it is 25 million below the original film, 5 million below Pray at Night, and 6 million below Chapter 1 from last year. It currently needs 19 million until it outgrosses Pray at Night. Wow. Like, yeah, I kind of figured, like, I don't think much of a fan base was born after The Strangers Chapter 1, so that's why I was saying, like, if anything, it might just have the same amount of people from the first time around. It doesn't even seem like that. Now, obviously, when Chapter 1 came out, they opened to, what was the difference? Like 11 million or so domestically, but they did end up going on, like, domestically, they made, like, over 30 million altogether, and I think worldwide, they bumped up to, like, maybe 50 million. The budget was 8.5, so it was kind of like, okay, it's like a small success. This movie's budget is also 8.5 million. Since they filmed all 3 movies back to back, I am like, there's a part of me that is curious, like, is it just 8.5 for all? Like, did they shoot all of them for 8.5, or is it 8.5 for each one? I'm curious about that. I don't know the logistics of how that would work, but I would be curious. Like, as far as like, is it 8.5 for all of them? In which case, the first movie, I guess, already kind of made that, like, already made that over, you know what I mean? If it's 8.5 for each of them, then Chapter 2 is in obviously a little bit more trouble. But they already filmed Chapter 3. They already put a trailer of it in the credits for Chapter 2. So unless it gets dumped on streaming, like, it still has to come out. They already filmed it and they've teased it, right? Despite how this one continues to perform now. They have released it like right before October hits. There could be a solid chance that it holds on a little bit better just because some people are now like, I don't know, we should see something spooky. The Strangers 2 is new. I don't know if that's even people's thought process of this, because not just Rotten Tomatoes is negative score critics, and then the audience score is even like dipped into the 50s, but even CinemaScore gave this a C-, like the people that submit their scores to CinemaScore, however it works, C-. Like, the people that wanted to go see, the casual audiences that wanted to go see this movie walked out, and a majority consensus said, this sucks. If they were CinemaScore users, I guess. Yeah, man. Wow. You know what I mean? And look, I hated it, full disclosure, a little bit of insight. I don't remember what I said about the first movie when it came out last year. I don't remember anything of what I said in these box office videos last year, but Chapter 1 was abysmal, if you ask me, and I'm not a fan of the Strangers movie. I don't hold them in high regard, but Chapter 1 was abysmal just as a movie. Chapter 2 is like only a little bit better just because there's a bit more like action, but that's only because Chapter 2 is essentially Act 2 of a different like Strangers movie. You know what I mean? Like, they've stretched this out, ad nauseum. to the point where it's like they don't feel like complete story. It just feels like you're watching events happen and then the end happens for both movies and it just is to be continued, and no character arcs have really been reached. Like their poor excuse of like a self-contained story for each chapter, it just feels too loose and just stretched out to a point of like you're not getting connected with anything, amidst the other numerous problems that both of these films have had. I even heard they did a little bit of reshoots, if I'm remembering correctly. They did a little bit of reshoots after chapter 1's reception. I don't know what they did, just because like they're both of these are like equally as terrible. So yeah, I don't know what the future holds for this franchise. Just seems dead as fuck. Number 6 is Him, obviously having a pretty big drop off from its opening. Obviously, like I was saying last week, and I don't know if the word of mouth is going to be strong here, and yeah, it was not, had a pretty bad drop off here, making 3.6 million now. That adds to a domestic total of 20 million. There's no significant worldwide total to bump it up, so right now it is still facing down that initial production budget of 27 million. For Monkey Paw, it did outgross Keanu by a couple 100,000, but now it's behind Monkey Man by 5 million. It probably has some momentum to get past that, but yeah, once again, just going back to the Strangers thing, like word of mouth is like really, really bad. Like tanked it immediately. You know what I mean? Any anticipation that people had, it just tanked it immediately. What a bummer for them, I guess, but I didn't like this movie, so I don't care. I didn't like these last... Okay, if you want the comparison, Him is better than The Strangers Chapter 2. Definitely. I prefer Him over The Strangers Chapter 2, but I prefer number 7, The Long Walk, way more than those two. Made 3.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 28 million. For Francis Lawrence, it is 18 million away from Red Sparrow. Worldwide, it is at 34 million, so 6 million away from doubling its initial production budget of 20 million, which is fine. I was really hoping that this one could do a lot better in the theaters. It's at a point, and the budget is like, small enough where it's like, it'll do okay, but then once it's like sold on Blu-ray and, digital sales, stuff like that, I think it'll push over into like a breaking point, you know what I mean? A break-even point, sorry. But I was really hoping for like a bigger, like, even though it's like a bleak movie, I was hoping some people's word of mouth of like, no, this is like really excellent and the cast is great, that would like push it over. Didn't quite, but it's getting some attention now. I think it's just going to go on to have a greater love from people just outside of its theatrical release, I guess. For Francis Lawrence worldwide, it is 82 million behind Water for Elephants. I think that's still the biggest tragedy for me, is that this is like one of Francis Lawrence's best movies, if not his best, and it's his lowest grossing one. That's kind of a bummer. Number 8 is Downton Abbey, the grand finale, making 3.3 million, adding to a domestic total of 39 million. It is 5 million shy of outgrossing A New Era, the second movie. So they got that going for them. Worldwide, it is at 77 million now, so that's 15 million away from A New Era, but more importantly, I think 23 million away from doubling their initial production budget of 50 million. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they caught up to A New Era, at least more so domestically. If it's still in the top 10 next week, and I could potentially see it finally outgrossing that one then, or getting closer, at least worldwide, I'm not so sure. Yeah, once again, similar to Demon Slayer, I wish I could have like more impassioned feelings about this, but I didn't see this movie because I didn't see the show. I didn't see the other two movies. I don't care about Downton Abbey. I'm sorry. It's their last one. Number 9 is They Call Him OG, making 1.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 5.2. This is on a budget estimated to 200 and 250 crore. I feel like if it's a budget with crore, most of the time it's going to say like 200 to, maybe 250 or like 200. Like if maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I'm tricking myself, but it definitely feels like this has been the go-to budget lately for some of these movies. But there you go. It squeaked into the top 10 despite, I saw it on Fandango, but I was like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even think it could be popular to get into the top 5, which is why I didn't predict it, but it didn't even, it's almost like not even in the top 10, considering how close it is to our actual number 10, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Some of these movies better be lucky that, because I saw like a post that was saying like, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man releases have grossed like this amount of money in the theaters, but it's just like adding up what 2 and then 1, or if 3 is out, all 3 of them made over the course of a couple days, and it's like, separately though, they don't crack the top 10, but these bottom movies better be lucky they even have a spot here, right? Anyways, it made 1.2, adding to a domestic total of 5.9. Worldwide, it is at 14 million, so yeah, just way off from that 45 million initial production budget. That's a bummer, but like I was saying last weekend, it didn't really win me over. Like I saw it and I was like, I wish I kind of loved this more. And then like my opinion on it kind of like jaded overnight. I was just kind of like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like once again, I wish I loved it more. I had all the ingredients, right? And then it just kind of missed the mark. And I feel like some audience members maybe felt the same way. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, it's going to be the Taylor Swift thing. It's only out next weekend as far as I'm aware. So yeah, it's just going to dominate for 3 days. And then number 2, I think will be the Smashing Machine. Sorry, Dwayne Johnson. Man, Dwayne Johnson was so set to have a number 1 movie at the box office, and then number 2 for sure. As soon as Taylor announces that, it's like, nah, you're out, dude. Honestly, I do feel like, because I was looking at the Fandango website and I saw a lot of seats for Taylor, and then not so much for literally any other like real movies. You know what I mean? Which is, it throws a wrench as far as like me making these predictions, because I'm like, I don't know how things are going to hold over. I don't know what's exactly going to be like successful, what has the time to, or the option to. So I think number 3 could be one battle after another. Number 4, Avatar: The Way of Water re-release. That might be a bit crazy, but we'll see. And then number 5, Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. But like I said, I don't think, some of these movies will overtake each other as much, because Taylor Swift is going to be the thing like dominating theaters for a bit, or for the next couple days on next weekend. So I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know. God, who cares? No. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.